Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to my motherland of Scotland once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel many times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years. They are still a relatively new addition to the Scottish beer scene in comparison to some others, but they have built up a very, very good reputation for themselves, and they are most definitely a very well established name. Now, if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for the different kinds of sour beers, both the kind of more woody, old school Belgian type sour beers, but also the more modern, fruity, juicy, smoothie, Nordic, whatever we're going to call them, sour beers. But they've also been doing some very interesting stouts recently too. But yeah, all in all, a very, very good brewery, very well respected these days, and one of the Scottish breweries that I would highly, highly recommend that you check out. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of this brewery's latest releases here in Hong Kong. It is a style that I have had from this brewery before, one that I know they can do very well, and this one just really kind of caught my eye because I thought it would be very interesting. So needless to say, I'm really, really curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. And I have to say, I'm always happy to return to this brewery when the opportunity arises. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to my motherland of Scotland, like I said. We are going to go to the city of Edinburgh, the capital, and we're going to go a little bit east over to Portobello, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Vault City Brewery. So yeah, this particular beer is called Pineapple Upside Down Cake. It comes in at 8% ABV, and I think we have to categorise this one as being a sort of fruited smoothie sour type beer, but the ingredients list on this one is pretty interesting. Some people might argue that this one is a pastry sour. So yeah, this is another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Craftissimo in Sheung Wan over on Hong Kong Island. They imported a number of Scottish and English beers recently, very impressive selection in fact, and that is where I got this particular beer from. But yeah, Akio told me this one is very, very nice. He really enjoyed it, and he's always pointed me in the direction of some very, very interesting sour beers. So that was the main reason that I went for this one as opposed to some of the others. I think they had about 8 beers from Vault City in that particular shipment, come to think of it, which is pretty damn impressive. But yeah, an 8% smoothie sour from the wonderful Vault City in Portobello in my motherland of Scotland. So let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting then, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Vault City Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. I do have another beer from these guys to review in a few videos time, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. Not as often as I would like these days, I have to admit. But yeah, do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Vault City Brewing then. So, Vault City Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are from the Edinburgh area of Scotland, and the company was founded back in 2018 by Johnny Horn, Adele Wilkie and Stephen Smith Hay. So Johnny worked in the Hanging Bat Bar on Lothian Road in the city, which is quite a well-known little brew pub. They do some really nice stuff, and Stephen and Adele were regular customers at the bar, and just over time they all became friends. But Johnny was studying at the time that they met, but he was also quite an avid home brewer, as was Stephen, and so the two began planning a brewery together, and Adele apparently contributed a lot of ideas in the early stages, and she decided that she wanted to join them fully in the project. But Johnny was a great fan of the Belgian lambics and sour beers, and this really rubbed off as well on Adele and Stephen. And they felt that there was a gap in the market and a gap in the Scottish beer scene for a sour beer brewery, and so they decided that this was the direction they would take with their project. But initially they didn't think so much about making money, and they set up what they called a glorified home brewing kit as their main brewery in Stephen and Adele's kitchen, and they began brewing weekly in July of 2018. So over the next year they began visiting a few different beer festivals and things like that, and collaborating with other breweries, and they started to spread the word about their beers, and they started brewing their beers at 71 Brewing in Dundee soon after that, and they spent 16 months there before relocating to their own purpose-built brewery in Portobello, which is to the kind of east of Edinburgh. But during the time in Dundee, Johnny decided to leave the company and found his own brewery called Holy Goat. From what I understand, there was just a bit of a kind of creative difference. You know, Johnny wanted to focus on doing lots of different kinds of beer, whereas Stephen and Adele wanted to have a kind of base beer and kind of play around with it, if you like. So it was kind of a creative difference. But yeah, Johnny of course left and founded Holy Goat Brewing, who I also recommend you really check out. But these days, Vault City have their Wee Vault Bar, which is near Haymarket Station in Edinburgh. I have been there once, and it's a really nice little shop. But very recently, they opened up another tap room in Portobello called Portobello, and apparently it's got some really nice pizza. So I'm hoping to go there and do an out and about video at some point very, very soon. But as of March 2025, these guys have produced I think it was 370 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. That number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on, and like I said, they are focused mainly on the kind of sour side of things, but they have been doing quite a few stouts and things like that recently, and I have seen a few sour IPAs from them over the years, which have always been very interesting, so I do hope they're still doing those. But the name Vault City is taken from the Edinburgh or Southside vaults, and these are arches that were built into the Southside bridges in Edinburgh, and they were home to like workshops and taverns and things like this. So yeah, they decided to go with something very Edinburgh themed for their brewery name. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Vault City Brewing for the moment, or Vault City Brewery. I'm not sure of the exact technical name for the brewery, but yeah, a very well respected name in the Scottish beer scene these days, one that I would highly recommend you check out. But if you want to learn more about the brewery, do check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and you can check out the Untappd and Rate Beer pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. Beer Advocate as well should have quite a few different things. But yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. So yeah, this is yet another one of the Vault City beers that is based on yeah, different desserts and things like that. I've had a few interesting beers from these guys over the years based on different cakes and stuff like this. Apparently this beer is part of a series that they did from 1 to 5, where one end of the scale was like the very kind of sweet smoothie type sour beers, and the other end was the really sharp kind of tart sour type thing. So apparently this one is level 3 in that series. I would have loved to try the whole series, of course, but having access to that here in Hong Kong is a little bit difficult. But it says it's from a series of 5 beers across the Vault City spectrum of sweet, tart to super sour. And then for it says here, for level 3, we've baked brewed a pastry sour pairing pineapple puree, tart cherries, brown sugar, and smooth vanilla with our mixed fermentation base beer. Prepare for a mouth-puckering experience that will turn your palate upside down. So yeah, the ingredients list says here that it contains malted barley and oats, pineapple, brown sugar, vanilla, cherry, and hops and yeast. So yeah, quite interesting. But yeah, anyway, that is the Vault City Brewing symbol there. So like a kind of like a castle's gate or whatever. And then yeah, on the back here, I'm not sure if that's going to focus. You can see yeah, this is number 3 in the series, and then they've got a wee pineapple ring there. Pardon me. This one is a 440ml can. Like I said, I picked this up at the wonderful Craftissimo in Sheung Wan, over on Hong Kong Island. I'm just going to roll this a little bit, turn it upside down, and make sure that some of the sediment comes out and things like that. So yeah, it should be nice to open up now. But yeah, this one is the Pineapple Upside Down Cake, 8% ABV. Let's get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. This should be pretty damn good. As I say, Akil told me this is a very, very nice beer, and when it comes to these kind of fruited, smoothie, sour beers, yeah, he's pointed me in some very interesting direction. So I've got quite high hopes for this one. I'm just going to pour it all out at once with this because, like I say, I rolled it and I don't want it to kind of re-sediment and things like that. But yeah, I have to say, let me just line that up so my OCD is happy. But yeah, there we go. I have to say, it's a really nice looking beer. Looks like a New England hazy right enough, but yeah. Anyway, before the head disappears on this one, you saw that I pulled the full 440ml can there. You've got a nice half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. And if I put that up to the camera there, you can see it's kind of small bubbles on the surface and a few more foamy ones the further up that you go. But yeah, it's got a lovely sort of mango pineapple juice type colour to it, which is kind of what you would expect. In all honesty, I might have expected it to be a wee bit darker with there being brown sugar and stuff added into it. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determine your determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour of it as well. But yeah, when it comes to these kind of modern sour beers, a lot of it is about the adjuncts and things. So a lot of the colour in this one will be due to the oats and wheat in a sense, but also the presence of the pineapple. I would have thought the cherries would have made a bit more of an impact on the colour here, but maybe it's just a very small amount of cherries in comparison to pineapple, which would make sense. But you can see it's got a good level of opacity to it, this one. Very, very soupy and gloopy actually, and the opacity in this beer will be due to the oat and wheat content of the beer for sure. But you can see the head is just faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer on this one. There's a wee bit of a ring around the edge of the glass there, but all in all, it looks pretty interesting, this one, and pretty much what you would expect from a smoothie sour. In all honesty. So yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one. The only other thing that I could potentially add is that there's not very much carbonation visible in this beer. But yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see how we go. I have to say, the aroma of that is very, very nice. It's actually pretty complex. One thing that I've often said in like smoothie sour reviews is that I find the aroma of these beers pretty straightforward, but the beers are always beautiful to drink. This one, I think, is going to be, it just feels a little bit more complex in a way, but it's, yeah, it feels a little bit more complex in a way, but it still in some ways kind of smells as if it's going to be straightforward. So yeah, very bold flavours you tend to get from these particular beers. Yeah, so for me, this one, yeah, the pineapple jumps out at you straight away, but let's break down the aroma, sorry, and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, you do of course get that little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's wee hints of cracker and wee hints of wood in this one. You can smell a little touch of like brown bread and white bread, but all in all, the kind of malty side of the beer is really, yeah, the malty side of the beer for me is actually very yogurty. It reminds me of these, you know, the Munch Bunch yogurts. People in Scotland, I think, will know what I mean when I say that, but we used to get these. When I was a wee boy, my mum used to put these yogurts in my lunchbox. That were, you know, used to get a strawberry, a raspberry, and an apricot one. These Munch Bunch yogurts, I loved them. The backbone of this beer, the whole malty backbone, just reminds me of those Munch Bunch yogurts, or even, you know, Petit Filou is the other one that comes to mind. Yeah, so that, of course, that kind of yogurty note that the beer has comes from the oats and the wheat that are in it. So yeah, you've got this lovely kind of vanilla yogurty type note coming out of this beer, but within that you can smell the influence of the brown sugar. Like, it has got a little touch of a kind of toasty, caramelly, toffee type note to it. This one definitely. So the yogurt is kind of vanilla-y, but then yeah, it's got this kind of toffee element to it, I think. And then on top of all of that, you've got a wee bit of like Werther's Original. Yeah, you've got a wee bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type note to this one. Wee bits of biscuit as well. Yeah, the way it goes together, I think, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really, really nice. It gets a big thumbs up from me, this beer. So yeah, the way everything goes together on the malty side of this one, it's a little bit nostalgic for me. I feel like I haven't had one of these kinds of beer in a wee while, but yeah, malty side of things in this beer is really damn nice. In some ways it feels quite straightforward, in some ways it feels like it's got that wee bit more complexity to it. The yeasty side of things then with this one, on the back of your nose you'll get the yeasty character out of the beer. So for me, the yeasty side of this one, it's got a bit more of a kind of sweeter brown bready character at its core, but you do get a little bit of a more white bready and slightly crackery character out of it as well. So that's quite interesting too. But yeah, all in all, the malty and yeasty side of this beer is quite familiar, and quite, it's what you'd expect from this style, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, let's have a little look at the hoppy and kind of fruity side of things with the beer then. So when it comes to hops in modern sour beers, I would just, this one's definitely a smoothie sour, so modern sour beers. It's always interesting to ask brewers about their hopping mentality, because what they used to do with the more old school Belgian woody type sour beers was that they would add older hops to the beer that had lost a little bit of their alpha acid potency, and because of that, the sourness of the beer wouldn't be kind of diminished by the green component. When it comes to modern sour beers, where you've got all the fruity adjuncts and things like that, a number of breweries don't tend to add hops into the beer because they say there's no point because the fruits are going to drown it out anyway, but some breweries still do. Vault City are one of the ones that like to add hops into their beer, and Holy Goat do it as well, whereas if you go to Sweden, you've got the likes of Elm 11, Duck Pond and all of these guys who do smoothie sours. They don't actually add hops into their sour beers, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I think adding hops gives you a slightly bigger depth of flavour, but without the hops, it still tastes pretty damn good as well. So it really just depends what you want to do. This one, it tells me on the side of the can here that there are some hops in the beer, and you can detect that in the aroma. There is a little bit of green component visible, detectable here, I guess is the right word. So yeah, you can smell a little tiny touch of earthiness and a wee bit of like woodiness. But yeah, some nice grassiness and some nice floral aromaticity. But yeah, definitely, it's drowned out by all the pineapple that's in here, and a bit of the cherry as well. The pineapple, it's interesting, the sort of, the notes you're getting from the fruity side of this beer, the pineapple is definitely the dominant player, but you can smell just that little bit of juiciness from the cherry underneath, and I'm getting other notes out of it, like just a little touch of maybe mango and apricot and stuff like this, although those are, maybe a bit of a placebo effect, if you can call it that. But yeah, all in all, the aroma of this beer is really pretty damn nice, and as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy it before you get stuck into the beer. But I think it really is about time that we try this one and just see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Pineapple Upside Down Cake, an 8% smoothie sour, I think it's going to be, from the wonderful Vault City Brewery in Portobello near Edinburgh in my motherland of Scotland. Let's get stuck into this. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's really very, very good. Yeah, I mean, when I think about the other beers I've had from Vault City, this one is very interesting. I mean, this is in the, it's in the middle of the scale that they've made for themselves. I don't know whether one would be the really sharp, tart things, and 5 would be the sweeter side of things, or what way around the scale goes. But this one just has such a really nice balance to it. When I compare it to other smoothie sours, of course, the ones I come into contact with most at the moment would be the One Drops from Melbourne in Victoria. They're from Sydney, rather. They're from Sydney in New South Wales, in Australia. Those ones are really creamy and thick and soft. But of course, in Sweden it was Elma Living in Duck Pond and things like that I was coming across. This one really is more like those kind of beers, and I haven't had too many from Vault City that are like that. I think it's been more, the Vault City ones that I've had have been a little bit kind of sharper and things, in all honesty. So for me, this is quite an interesting experience to try a Vault City beer that's like that. This is definitely a bit smoother and more yogurty and kind of creamy than a number of the Vault City ones I've had in recent times, at least, although it has been maybe about a year or so since I had a Vault City beer, so maybe there's a bit more, they've made this scale for themselves now, maybe they're expanding over the different kind of spectra of sour beer in a sense. But all in all, this one is very, very good. I have to say that about it for sure. Yeah. So for me, this one, it is like kind of biting into, well, it's kind of like taking in a slightly sour pineapple yogurt. It's very, very much like that. It's a really interesting beer, this one. It's one of these ones where what you think you're going to get on the basis of the aroma really kind of comes to fruition. So let's just break the beer down and describe it for you that more in depth. We'll go to the middle third of the palate as we always do. So the backbone of the beer, of course, you do get a little bit of that fresh white bready bread crust in there. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a wee touch of woodiness. There's a little bit of like Jacob's cream cracker on top of that, but yeah, you have some really nice kind of smooth and slightly dense and sweet brown bready character coming out of this one, which I do really quite like. And then above that, you've got a little bit more of you've got a wee bit more of you've got a wee bit more of a kind of brown, so you've got the brown bread, and then you've got more of a fluffy white bready layer coming out of this one. So you can feel those dense bready notes in the backbone of the beer that just give it that little bit of dryness, but above that you get that kind of thicker creamy layer, which is the kind of yogurty note that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, the yogurty layer that this beer has is really interesting. So I think, is there wheat in this one? No, it doesn't say anything about wheat. So yeah, the oats in this beer, obviously that yogurty layer is composed primarily of the oats. So you can feel down the kind of middle line of your palate there in that yogurty layer. You've got the really creamy side of the oats, and then as you push out toward the edges of your palate, it's got a little bit more of it has got a little bit more of a kind of dryness to it in a way, which is interesting. But within that yogurty, oaty layer, you can definitely feel the influence of the brown sugar that's been added into this beer. So it gives the yogurty side of things a kind of slightly toffee type flavour. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel a little circle there, which is a more kind of concentrated Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type note. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really interesting in this one. I have to say that. But yeah, so there's a wee bit of that Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch in the dead centre of your palate there, which is of course the alcohol coming out of the beer, and there's maybe just a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this one too. So yeah, the way that all pieces together in this one, I think, is really interesting. Yeah, is there anything else I really need to say about that? I don't think so. I think we've covered everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate then. So as I've often said, the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate are going to give you very similar flavours, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of bready build-up in there, a wee bit of brown bread, wee bit of kind of white bread on top, then a bit more of the dense kind of yogurty side of things there. But yeah, the backbone, the base of that back third of your palate, is still the kind of fresh white bready bread crust. You've got a wee touch of cracker on top of that. The brown bready layer is there. It feels a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and dry. Then above that you have a little bit of the kind of white bread barley malt, which is a little bit lighter, taller, more airy. But then above everything else you have this kind of oaty, like more porridgey type layer, which is the oaty side of things, and you can feel a wee bit of the kind of brown sugar, the kind of Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch sort of thing just creeping over the top of that. And then it's all about the yeasty side of things on top of that. So let's have a wee look at the yeasty character in this beer. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer, I think at its core, it's like a very dense and very sweet brown bready kind of character. Then round the edge, it's like more of an oat, like a dense oaty, wheaty white bread. And yeah, there's just a little touch of bread crusty character around the edge of it. So the yeasty side of this beer is actually really, really dense in the way everything pieces together in this one. So yeah, the way that everything pieces together on the yeasty side of this beer is really quite interesting. And definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, interesting stuff from the malty and yeasty side of things in this particular beer. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about it, to be honest with you. Quite yogurty, but yeah, kind of toffee kind of underlying to it in a way. So let's focus on the kind of hoppy and fruity side of the beer then. So you can detect a little bit of the green component in this one. There's a wee touch of earthiness in the back corners of the palate there. Then as you move further forward along the sides of your tongue, you can feel it gets progressively more floral as you move toward the kind of front corners of your palate there. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit lighter and more grassy and zesty, if you like. But you can absolutely feel the pineapple on top first, pardon me, and the kind of tartness that gives you. But you can feel a little bit of the cherry coming out of this one too. And I think the further into the aftertaste you go with this beer, like on top of the middle third of your palate, you can feel the influence of the cherry in there. That just like little juicy tartness that you get from cherries, that's definitely there. But yeah, you can feel, as I said earlier, the pineapple adjunct in this one really just pushes against any bitterness that the beer has, and it gives it a tartness along the edges of your palate there. So that's really, really interesting. But yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the green component of the beer. So let's focus on the front third of the palate then, and the fruity side of things. So yeah, front third of your palate then, the border region between front and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread from the barley malt on top, and then the more kind of dense oaty kind of things. And then the base of that front third of your palate, again, you've got the fresh white bready bread crust in there, you've got the brown bready layer, the white bready layer, and then you get the nice kind of creamy oaty character coming out of this one as well. One thing I would say about the front third of your palate and that front middle border region is you do get quite a lot of the vanilla coming out there. So yeah, the vanilla I think really shines through on that kind of front third of your palate. But above that, you can feel a little oily bubble where you get the fruity esters from the hops, and you can also feel the influence of the adjuncts. So in the oily bubble, for me, you're getting things like, you know, sultana, oily pear, maybe a little tiny touch of gooseberry, something like that. Yeah, the hoppy side of things in this, I'd be curious to know what hops they would have used in this. I mean, if they're going for pineapple, there's a good few you could use. And citrus going to give you it. Quite a few of the New Zealand ones. Galaxy will give you a bit of it as well. Yeah, so the fruity side of this one, I think, yeah, you've got sultana, oily pear. I want to say there's a wee bit of juicy mango in this one, and I feel there's maybe a little tiny touch of lemon and lime as you reach the very front tip of your tongue. That could of course be from the sour yeast and things, but above that, of course, you really do, you can feel the pineapple adjunct in there, and the sort of sharp tartness from the pineapple adjunct just pushing against everything. So yeah, the way that goes together in this beer is really nice as well. And like I say, the cherry kind of sits there and comes out, the sort of sour and red fruity character of the cherries comes out more into the aftertaste. But all in all, the way that it goes together is really quite interesting actually. So yeah, lovely beer this one, quite different to what I've had from Vault City in the past, and kind of reminds me of like, I think it's got more of the kind of consistency of like Elm 11 and Duck Pond that I had from Sweden. Not quite as creamy and smooth as the not quite as creamy and smooth as the one drops I've had before. But I actually just noticed this. There seems to be a layer of, I don't know how well you guys can see. I think you can see that on the camera there. There's certainly a thicker layer at the bottom of the glass for this beer. So let's just take another sip of it and see what that gives us. Yeah, if it separates like this, you can really see that density of layers from chemistry. Remember that very, very well. Separating funnels and stuff like that. Yeah, if you do get that, be careful that with the fact that it will separate. But yeah, it's not quite as thick and creamy as some other smoothie sours I've come across, but it's certainly very damn good, and the main thing is of course the flavour. So big thumbs up to Vault City for this one. Another very, very good beer from these guys, and absolutely worth trying. So let's round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer is kind of top end of mid-bodied, maybe bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth, as many Scottish beers do. This one feels very, very clean. You can taste the quality of the water, and this one we're very proud of our tap water in Scotland, of course, which is very good for making beer. IBU wise, I think this beer technically is probably 0 IBUs, but there's maybe 5 or so in there, something like that. The malt base has a wee bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a kind of creaminess and slightly brown sugary sweetness on top. And the fruity side of the beer is nice and juicy, of course, because of the pineapple. But there's a fair little bit of tartness in this one. It's not overly tart, of course, but yeah, you do get that nice little bit of sourness lingering there into the aftertaste. All in all, another lovely beer from the wonderful Vault City Brewery, and it's definitely worth trying if you get the chance. So yeah, this one was the Pineapple Upside Down Cake, an 8% smoothie sour from Vault City Brewery in Portobello to the east of Edinburgh in my motherland of Scotland. Very nice to return to these guys after what feels like a very long time. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Vault City Brewery as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte Scot, cheers, check out my social media, check out Vault City's social media, and I'll see you guys again in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.